Greetings, bonjour, hola, welcome to Authentic Vocabulary Instruction. I'll introduce myself in just a second, but before I do, I want to encourage you to pull up some of the resources that are available that will make this presentation a little more useful for you. First of all, at the top of the screen, there is a bit.ly link that is to these slides. And there are a lot of links and resources embedded within the slides. So it'll be really helpful to you if you can have the slideshow up on your own device. The address is bit.ly/authentic vocab, and it is case sensitive. So please take a moment and pull up those slides on your own device. Also, as you're doing that, check out my social media. I'm not super active on social media, but I do have a small presence. The best way to access my content is on my blog, which is explorecurriculum.com. And I do update that blog frequently. There's a lot of great resources there, resources that we'll discuss today, and also resources that for other topics that I hope will be useful for you. Finally, there are two links there. One is to the workshop handouts. If you don't have a paper copy of that handout with you, I do encourage you to pull it up on your device. A paper handout is actually probably the best. So if you have a moment to pause and go print that out, I think it'll make the workshop more useful for you. And the last link there, number 5, is a link to all of the resources that I've used, links within the slides and links to other helpful resources. And I do have some links to some free products on there that I sell on my Teachers Pay Teachers store. So I hope all of this will be helpful for you. Please get all of that ready as we begin our session together. My name is Lisa Bartels. I'm a National Board Certified teacher. I teach mainly French and a little bit of Spanish. I've been teaching for 26 years, and I really am passionate about good curricular design and how that solves a lot of the problems we have in class. And so what I want to share with you today is on a topic that I'm really passionate about, vocabulary instruction, which is a real foundation and cornerstone of what we do in our classes. And I want to share with you some challenges I've experienced in introducing vocabulary, and then how I've worked through those. And I hope this will be helpful for you as we work together through this topic. So I'd like you to, in just a minute, pause this video. And if you're in a group, discuss these questions. If you're alone, just take a moment to brainstorm them. Here are the 3 questions you're going to consider. First of all, how do you introduce vocabulary in your classes? And then how do you reinforce and assess that vocabulary? And then finally, how would you guess the students in your class feel about that vocabulary component? So take a moment and pause the video and discuss this, and then restart when you're ready. All right, welcome back. I hope that you had a good discussion about your current vocabulary practices. I'm going to share with you what I did for a lot of my career, which I'll call a traditional approach to vocabulary instruction. And this is an approach I see a lot of teachers using, and it is the approach I used for a long time. On the day it's time to introduce a new unit, I will give students the vocabulary words. Now, that might be in the form of a list that I've personally curated, or it might be in the form of a textbook or some list that I'm required, but I give kids a list of words, and then we walk through the definitions. Sometimes that means I'm giving them the definitions and telling them pronunciation while the kids are taking notes. Other times I'll have the kids go search for definitions in reference material, but either way, we're taking each word and defining it, and maybe pronunciation as well. And then the next classes are all working to help students memorize that list. So we'll do games, we'll do other kinds of drill and practice. When I say drill, I don't necessarily mean that it's boring or strict. It just means that we're working toward memorizing with lots of different techniques. And then at the end of the unit, I give the kids some kind of a test where they have to produce the words for me. Maybe there's pictures and they have to write the word underneath, or that might be matching, but there's some sort of closed response for me to just determine that the kids have memorized that list of words. And then I'll work to integrate those words into instruction as we move forward. So this is the approach that I used for many years and that a lot of teachers use. And it's what I saw other teachers in my department doing. I didn't know a different way, but there were some things about this that bothered me. First, I realized that for a big chunk of class, I was just presenting information. I was directing, it was teacher directed, and the kids were sitting there passively and taking notes. And then I started thinking about Bloom's taxonomy. And where does this vocabulary instruction fall? And I realized that a big chunk of my class was down at the remembering, or maybe you could argue it went up to understanding and applying, but it was still at the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy. And of course, we need to spend some time at the bottom of that triangle, but I was spending huge amounts of time there, and we were never really getting up into the top, the analyzing, evaluating, and creating area. And that bothered me, and it also bothered me the reactions I got from my students. The kids didn't like vocabulary days. They were sitting there bored. The kids told me it was boring. I asked kids about vocabulary, and one student told me I usually forget it after the quiz or test. And that hurt to hear, but it rang true because I saw, yeah, it wasn't just that student. Like, kids 2 weeks later wouldn't remember the vocabulary that we had just learned in the past unit. It was like out of their brain. And one student told me flashcards are dull and working on every word is like a chore. Well, this isn't the feedback I wanted to hear from my students. And I actually had a little epiphany. I learned French as a second language. I started it in high school. And so I've been exactly where my students are, of starting from nothing. And I was in France at a friend's apartment one day, and she asked me to get some cleaning supplies out of her closet. So I opened the closet and I saw a bottle there, and it said Javel. And I didn't know what that meant. So I opened the bottle and I smelled it, and it was bleach. And it just made such a strong, like, memory in my mind. No one ever taught me the word bleach. I never learned it, memorized it on a list. I just was holding the bottle, I smelled it, and I remembered it. I remembered it because I needed it, and I figured it out from context. No one had to teach it to me. And I started thinking, could I replicate that experience for my students, where instead of me giving them a list and telling them to memorize it, they were uncovering the vocabulary in a realistic context? And so I started looking for a way to do that. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So the first question to ask when we're planning a unit is, where would a real target language speaker encounter this vocabulary in real life? Okay, and so I'm going to walk you through, whoops, sorry, wrong direction. I'm going to walk you through two different vocabulary introductions that I would do with my students, using this approach of trying to introduce the vocabulary in context and helping students to uncover it. And I call this authentic vocabulary instruction. So the first activity we're going to work with is the unit on body parts. Most of us do this unit in our novice classes in level 1 or 2, where we introduce the words for, hair, nose, neck, foot, all of the body parts. Okay, so where would a real French speaker encounter the vocabulary for body parts in, like, real life? Pause the video right now and chat about that question for about 1 minute. Okay, welcome back. And we're discussing where a real target language speaker, a French speaker in this case, would encounter vocabulary for body parts. Here are some places where I thought they might find it. One is in a healthcare setting, when you're talking to a doctor. My elbow is really sore, it's painful, but my shoulder is okay. So you might talk about the parts of your body there. Personal hygiene, discussing, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, and certainly, like, all those makeup tutorials that some of our students love will have a lot of body part vocabulary for facial features. Athletics is a big place where body parts might be discussed, especially if you're learning a whole body skill. So I'm imagining a gymnastics teacher coaching their student to, straighten your wrist a little bit more, make sure your elbows are flexed, carry the weight in your shoulders. And so they might be giving that sort of tutorial or coaching to students, and a lot of the body parts might be mentioned. And then the place where I decided to introduce this vocabulary to my students is through a drawing tutorial. There are a lot of video tutorials online, and these are great places to find vocabulary introductions. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through an activity that I would do with my beginning French students. If you are not a French teacher, this is actually better, because you're going to have a little bit more of the experience that the students would have as they work through this activity themselves. So you should have the handout in front of you that says vocabulary exploration at the top and les parties du corps. There's kind of a blank area on the left, and you're going to use that to do a drawing in just a second. And then take a look at the right side where it says B. I just Well, actually, we'll do that in a second. Let's watch the video first. And as you're watching, the only thing you're going to do is copy what the video is doing. So let me pull this up. Okay, this is comment dessiner Bob l'éponge, and this is, we're going to draw our own little SpongeBob. So follow along as you watch this video.
On va dessiner Bob l'éponge.
Waouh, mais c'est qui Bob l'éponge?
C'est une éponge qui vit dans l'eau avec son meilleur ami Patrick. Puis il vit plein d'aventures, puis c'est assez drôle.
Qu'est-ce qu'il nous faut, Samuel, pour dessiner Bob l'éponge?
Une feuille, un stylo, des stylos de couleur et des crayons de couleur.
C'est parti!
Tout ça va au stylo!
On aura notre bonhomme ici, Bob l'éponge, ici au milieu de la feuille. Et on va commencer par dessiner son nez et ce sera juste un petit arrondi. Comme ça. Qu'est-ce qu'on pourrait dire? C'est un U à l'envers. Ensuite, on va dessiner ses yeux. Donc, ils sont collés à son nez. Donc, on va faire d'abord un premier rond. Hop, comme ça. Alors, Samuel, il a fait l'œil droite. Maintenant, il faut faire l'œil gauche qui est collé à l'autre œil. Donc, on peut commencer déjà ici et hop. Comme ça. Voilà, il a ses yeux qui sont collés comme ça. Ok. On va faire ses pupilles après. Pour l'instant, on va faire maintenant sa bouche. Donc, il a des espèces de... Il a des joues, en fait. Voilà, on refait des arrondis, un peu comme le nez. Voilà, à gauche et à droite. Et maintenant, on relie avec un... en tout cas, ici. Bon, d'abord, on fait la petite fossette. Donc, ça va faire un petit trait dans ses joues. 2 petits traits, comme ça. Et maintenant, on va relier avec un grand arrondi. Voilà. Il est content, notre Bob. Et maintenant, on va lui faire son sourire. Donc, hop, un autre arrondi comme ça, qui rejoint, hop, l'autre côté. Voilà. On va lui faire ses 2 dents. Donc, hop, un carré. Hop, et un autre carré ou un rectangle plutôt. Voilà. Et avec sa langue à l'intérieur. Voilà. Super. On va lui faire maintenant sa tête d'une forme un peu carrée, mais avec le haut un peu plus large. C'est-à-dire qu'on va partir depuis à peu près ici. On va pas faire une ligne, on va faire des vagues. Parce que c'est une éponge. Comme ça. Voilà. Et puis, on va revenir à peu près ici. On peut se mettre des petits points. Comme ça nous fait des espèces de repères. Voilà. Alors, je pense qu'il faut que tu viennes même plus par ici. Là, pour revenir. Voilà. Parce que le haut doit être plus large que le bas. Parce que moi, j'étais même plus là. Donc, on va revenir et toujours en vague. Voilà. En faisant des vagues, des petites vagues. Comme une éponge. Oui, super. On va lui faire 3 cils. 1, 2, 3. Un à gauche, un au milieu et un à droite. Et maintenant, on va pouvoir faire ses pupilles. Donc, qui nous regarde, nous. Donc, on va essayer de les faire bien au milieu. Hop, comme ça. Il nous regarde, nous. Voilà. Hop. Et il y a encore un rond à l'intérieur. Hop. Et hop.
Okay, I'm going to stop this video here, but in class, of course, I would let it play. It's about 8 minutes long, and so at the end, the students would have their Bob l'éponge that would look like this, and we would compare them and laugh about them. The kids really enjoy this activity, and all we're doing is drawing and listening. Now, obviously, there's a lot here that students aren't going to understand. If you're not a French speaker, I'm sure there were a lot of things in this video that you didn't understand, but it's okay, because we're focused on just doing this task. And if you're able to accomplish the task, even though you're taking in visual cues to do it, it's totally fine. And we just got 8 minutes of listening in this vocabulary introduction, and it was in context. Okay, so this is the first step, just drawing our bob l'éponge. And now take a look at column B on your worksheet. And there are some words in French in column B. Now, I would go through these with the kids to pronounce them, because pronunciation in French can be a little tricky. And on the list that you have on this handout, I've got some of the words grayed out. Those are ones that we didn't really watch the video for. I'm just going to discuss a few of these words. Actually, for time, I'm just going to discuss a couple right now. La bouche, and just pronounce it after me. Just practice. La bouche, le cil, la dent. Okay, and I'm just going to do 2 more toward the bottom of the right-hand column. La pupille, and then the very bottom one, les yeux. Les yeux. That X is silent in French. Remember, class, that the last letter in French is usually silent. And so that is how this could be pronounced, les yeux. Okay, so we're going to watch this video clip again, and I'm just going to show you a portion of it. But this time through, I'd like you to see if you can label any of the words that you hear, words that are on the right, label them on your drawing. Okay, so we're not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to do a little clip here where it's got a few of the words. Let me jump ahead. Whoops, that is not what I meant to do.
On va dessiner.
Just a minute here, folks. Let me find the spot. Right in here. Okay, so we're listening especially for les cils, les yeux, and les pupilles.
Comme une éponge. Ouais, super. On va lui faire 3 cils.
Oh, did you hear it? Listen to that again.
Ouais, super. On va lui faire 3 cils. 1, 2, 3.
Ah, 3 cils. Cils. So cils are the eyelashes, and you and my students would hear her say 3 cils. It's very clear there. Listen to that one more time.
Ouais, super. On va lui faire 3 cils. 1, 2, 3.
Got it.
Un à gauche, un au milieu et un à droite. Et maintenant, on va pouvoir faire ses pupilles. Donc,
Oh, there was another word. Listen to that again.
un à gauche, un au milieu et un à droite. Et maintenant, on va pouvoir faire ses pupilles, donc qui nous regardent nous. Donc, on va essayer de les faire bien au milieu. Hop.
Okay, so that's pupille. Okay, in the middle there, the pupils. So we got the eyelashes and the pupils. And I just pulled those 2 little clips out because they're pretty easy to hear in this string of French. Now, what I would do in class is spend a lot more time on this. I might play the whole video again from beginning to end in front of the full class and see if anyone could get anything. Of course, it's hard to do that in the stream of French for novice speakers, and then I might clip it up and divide what the kids are listening for. And I might do what I just did now, where I pause it right after we hear the word and highlight that for the students. Depending on my class, I might give the kids the video, the link, and tell them to work at it. What you have to do in that case is really train the kids and push them to not turn on the subtitles. We're working on listening comprehension here. We're not trying to read it, which is way too easy. So you do have to work with the kids to get them to buy into that challenge and treat it like a game, like a challenge, and let's see what you can figure out. But we would spend probably an entire class period, 40 minutes or so, on this video, just working to get our SpongeBob labeled and identified accurately. And so the kids are doing a lot during this. I'm not doing so much. And so that's the first day. That's the introduction. I don't really do a lot of direct teaching. I do some coaching and guidance for the students. But at the end of the first day of class, they have their SpongeBob drawing labeled accurately with the words that I provided for them. So on the second day of class, I put the kids into small groups, and I'm still not giving them a list of vocabulary words. I'm telling that I'm going to tell the students now, take the work you did yesterday, and I'd like you to gather in your group to identify 10 words that you think we should include on our class list of body parts. So I want the target language words, keep it G-rated. I teach middle school, so when we talk about body parts, it can go off in bad directions. So we're going to keep this G-rated, but give me 10 words that your group together agrees on. And after the groups have had some time to work and develop their list, then I will give them a link to a collaborative list. And let me show you what that looks like. Okay, I'll have all of my students type in the list that they came up with. I did this in English. My students would do it in the target language. And so then I post this in front of the class. And I will show students like, okay, let's take a look here. So I see the word head is showing up in almost every group. So let's see, almost all the groups have it. Group 5 has head. So would you guys agree that head is a word that we need in our classroom list? And so we're going to create a class list down here at the bottom. When I'm putting in the class list, I'll put in the articles and I'll spell it correctly. I'll put in accents and things that the students might not have done. Maybe I'll use definite articles, but whichever way that you choose to do it. But you can, the kids are going to make some mistakes when they're producing this language, even though they're maybe copying it, you'll put it in correctly. And so we'll go through and see, okay, what else? Let's see. I see we've got face here. Let's see, do other groups? Okay, other groups don't have face. Is that a word we want to include? Okay, maybe we won't include face on our list, but it looks like maybe feet is a word we should include. So let's do feet. And oh, by the way, class, there are 2 words in French for feet. There's foot and there's feet. A foot, the feet, or let's say some feet. We could use 2 there. So I'll highlight little things like that as we're making our list, and you'll see that like some students will have both forms. They might have foot or feet on their small group list. So I'll work through this small group list and we'll pull together, we'll together agree on the 15 to 20 words that we should have on our vocabulary list. Now, a student might say, but Miss Bartles, I broke my tibia last year and I have a lot of trouble with it. So I want the word tibia on our list. Now, I'll ask the class, do you want to include tibia? Tibia might be too specific. How about the word bone? Maybe the word bone would be a good one to include. We'll kind of decide as a class. And of course, I'm still providing structure and guidance. And if we come up, but tibia, maybe it's too specific, but Bob, you put tibia on your list. I would never tell you not to learn a word that's meaningful to you. And different words are going to be different levels of importance to individuals in the class. So this gives a little bit of flexibility for individual students to pull in words that are meaningful to them. Also, guys, I'm looking here and I noticed that no one has the word body on their list. Do you think that would be an important word for us to learn? Let's add it to our class list. We're gonna learn the word body because that's just kind of basic. Okay, so I will throw in and give the class guidance as we're working through our vocabulary list. It's not just the students, it's still me giving direction, but the kids have some buy-in and some influence into the list. And so I'll gently add articles and accents and other corrections as I'm typing. I'll suggest and add things that the kids are missing, and individual kids definitely should add words that are important to them. They can have those on their list, and our list is a little bit flexible. Okay, so now we've created a classroom vocabulary list. So now the third day, so that's the second day. So the third day of class, now I'll print and give that official list to my students. I give them the target language and I ask the kids to, using the work you did over the last 2 days, you can look at your SpongeBob drawing, you can talk to your partner, or to your group. Can you fill in every word in English, or can you do a little drawing? And then I'll take a little time to clarify pronunciation or anything else. So this is the third day of the vocabulary introduction. And so what kids have told me is by this third day, when I give them the official list, they already know the vocabulary. They've already figured it out. They already recognize it. They've had multiple exposures to it in context. They've worked with it. And so this day 3, where I'm giving them some of the nuts and bolts, it's a lot more effective and a lot more memorable. Okay, here's another way to do this vocabulary introduction, and this is with a text instead of a video, like a written text. Okay, and we're going to use the words for groceries. Okay, where would a target language speaker encounter the words for groceries? Obviously, this one's a little easier than the body parts. You encounter these words every day at restaurants, in recipes, a cooking video, or when you're buying groceries. And so we're going to do a little activity with this worksheet. If you flip onto the back side, the authentic for the vocabulary exploration, it says, oh, I don't speak Portuguese. We're going to do this in Portuguese today. But it says os mantimentos at the top. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm hoping that maybe there's no Portuguese teachers in here and we're all going to get this like experience our students would have. And so I'm going to send you to a website for a grocery store from Brazil. And I'd like you to figure out what these words at the top of this list mean. Frutas y vegetais, hortifruta, and you're going to write in what that means. And then you're going to give me 8 examples of products that you can find in that section of the grocery store. And I'd like you to give me the word in Portuguese. And then if you need to give me the word in English, or if you need to do like a little drawing in English, you can. And also please add in the price. Okay, so that's the assignment. We're going to do that for fruta y vegetais, talho a carne, latinos, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry, and padaria and pastelaria. If you're in the slideshow, there's a link to this website from Brazil, or you can just type in the web address. And here is what this website looks like. Let me pull this up. Okay, so here's the website. It's a grocery store. There's a lot of stuff on here. I do not know what a lot of it means, but I'm going to come up here to this top drop-down menu where it says departamentos, because those are like the aisles of the grocery store. And I've got a list here. And go ahead and pause the video and just take about 5 minutes and try this exercise and see what you can figure out in these groceries. So pause the video now. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at this grocery store activity together. I hope you were able to figure out some of the words for groceries. You might have some questions too. That's actually great. Whoops, I didn't mean to go into that department. That's actually great to have questions because that mirrors our real process in language learning. If I went to a Portuguese speaking grocery store, I probably would have some questions, but we're not going to focus on what we don't know. There's a lot of stuff on this site I don't know. I'm going to focus on what I can figure out. And I came down to this hortifruti section, and I can see here that it says in the categories fruta. I think that means fruit. There's some other categories there too. I know them because I can figure them out because I do speak Romance languages, but my students would not know. So how do you figure them out? You click on them and go into them. I'm just going to click on this overall section, and let's see, I've got, okay, I see there's a picture of potatoes here, and I see this says batata inglesa. Well, I know inglesa means English, so I'm guessing this means English potato. I don't exactly know what an English potato is, but I'm pretty sure that batata must be the word for potato. That was pretty easy. I'm going to add that to my section. And then I see here banana. That's really easy. And I also see, I don't know what prata means, but it's okay. I don't have to know everything. I also see the weight, 130 grams. And I see this R dollar 1,30. Well, obviously that's the price we can talk about. The kids will notice that, oh, they use commas instead of decimal points. And is it really $1.30 for a banana? We can talk, this introduces currency exchange, and it introduces weights and different units of measure. And so all of this introduced in context, and the kids are figuring it out, which is a lot more interesting and memorable than me telling the kids, hey guys, in Brazil, they use commas instead of decimal points. I see here also it says comprar. So I'm guessing that's like get. I know in Spanish that's buy, so I know it means buy, but maybe the kids would figure out that that means like add it to your cart. I'm going to click on these bananas and get a little more detail about them. It says there's a button here that says adicionar al carrino. I'm guessing this might mean add to cart because that's something that I'm familiar with in my own language. And let's see, I think this might be, I see that this looks like description and characteristics. And I see here more. I'm going to click on that and see more here and look at all the things I can figure out. I see banana prata. Again, it's banana, whatever this kind of banana is. Sabor y nutrição. I think that's nutrition. So this is something about nutrition. It says uma fruta deliciosa y versátil. A fruit that's delicious and versatile. So I'm figuring out all this vocabulary from contest. I see down here, rica en potasio. I think this means rich in potassium because I know bananas are rich in potassium. And normally we won't learn the word potassium in level 1 language class, but the kids are going in and they're figuring it out, and they will be proud of themselves and excited about all the things that they can discover. Okay, so kids will go through this activity and figure out as much as they can, and then you'll take them, that would be day 1. The kids are working independently. Now in this example, your students are going to have a lot, probably different vocabulary from each other that they figure out on the website. So that second day, when they get into groups and negotiate the vocabulary list, they're going to have even deeper discussions. And if they're unsure of something or arguing with something, I always send them back to the site. I try not to answer a lot of their questions. I tell them, look at the website and see what you can figure out and write that down with a question mark. Maybe we'll figure it out later. We're going to tolerate the ambiguity a little bit here because that is part of language learning. And I promise we will answer that question before you end class. I always will throw out any questions that didn't get answered that we can take a look at. So this lets us, the students, really work with and negotiate the vocabulary. So this is the authentic vocabulary approach. First, students complete a task using a target language text, either a video or a print text, and this is their first exposure to the vocabulary. Then kids work together to identify which terms or concepts are the most important. We collaborate to refine the list, and I provide guidance and clarification. And I'm still putting guardrails on this discussion. I'm still structuring it, but the kids are in the driver's seat a lot more than they are with a more traditional approach. Okay, so let's pause the video here. And then I'm going to try to anticipate some of your questions, but take a second and pause the video and discuss this with your group. What were the benefits and drawbacks of this approach? Where does this instruction fall on Bloom's taxonomy? And how do you think a student might feel about learning vocabulary in this way? Just pause the video, chat for about 3 or 4 minutes, or brainstorm, and then you can restart. All right, welcome back. Let's talk about these questions. And like I said, I'm going to try to anticipate some of the questions that folks often have when they're thinking about this idea. I hope this has been thought-provoking for you. Some of the benefits of this approach are that the vocabulary is being introduced in context and the kids are engaged in discovery instead of me as a teacher just delivering content to them. There are some drawbacks with this approach. First of all, it does take more time. So you have to invest in introducing vocabulary instead of kind of doing it in one fell swoop. Also, this approach can be a little messy. Sometimes the kids make mistakes. Sometimes they come to wrong conclusions. Sometimes they want words that aren't the words that I would like them to use. And remember that when that happens, you are in the driver's seat. You are putting guardrails on it. It's okay to say, we're not going that direction right now. Come back this way. Sometimes kids get into the website and they get lost. They don't know how to navigate. We'll talk a little bit about how to differentiate for students. So it can be a little bit uncomfortable as a teacher when you're used to having it be very structured, to let it be a little messier. But that's also language learning, right? That's real life language learning. The biggest drawback that I find with this approach is it is a challenge to find the authentic texts and to create the tasks. I have created quite a lot of these tasks for lots of different units. They're on my Teachers Pay Teacher store in French, Spanish. I have them for ESL. I have them for Portuguese, and I also have for Chinese because a dear friend of mine took all my lessons and translated them into Chinese for use in her classes. So they're available on Teachers Pay Teachers. Of course, you can do it yourself. It takes time. It's just an exchange of time for money. In the group resource, in the resources for these slides, I do have a free lesson in each language for you to use with your students. So please take advantage of those. Where did this fall on blooms? Let's just jump there. We're really working more in this middle to toward the top. I would say that the kids are getting into analyzing and evaluating on blooms instead of purely remembering. And the benefit is that as they work up there in the top part of the pyramid, the remembering comes a lot easier because they're using the vocabulary and it's a lot more meaningful. Okay. Oh, one other question I do want to address is, what if you are required to use a specific list, like your county or your PLC or your district has required that you have a list of vocabulary that the kids have to learn. Okay, it still works. You can still do that. So you're basically on the second day when the kids are doing that discussion, then I would introduce the required list and have them start seeing if they can figure out the words on that required list. So instead of creating a classroom list, you're going to give that official list to the students on the second or third day. But you can still do the first day the same way. You can still introduce the vocabulary, because the fact is, if every single person watching this video came up with a list of the 20 most important vocabulary words for body parts, it would probably be 90% the same. Like, we're going to identify the list that you're required to provide kids is the same list they're going to come up with for the most part. And then if they want to add a few words to it, great. That's excellent. So you can do this with a set required curriculum. I would just introduce that required vocabulary list a little bit later after the kids have already interacted with the words a little bit. Okay, one thing I love about authentic vocabulary is it's really easy to differentiate. So how do you differentiate for a fast finisher, that kid that is done with their worksheet in 5 minutes and then they want to play video games? Well, when I frame these assignments, our goal is not to fill out this worksheet as fast as possible. The goal is to spend 20 minutes reading and working with this text. The goal is framed by time, not by task completion. So if you're not done until the time is up. So if you have filled out the worksheet and you have figured out all these words, I want you to go back and go a little bit deeper. I want you to look for more detail, something more rigorous. So go back and see if you can add an adjective to each of the words that you listened to or that you watched. Can you give the student more specific, nuanced vocabulary? Okay, you found the words that I gave you on this list, but now here are some other words that I'd like you to go back and find. So like on the SpongeBob, like you figured out the vocabulary words, but now I'd like you to figure out the word for tie and for belt and for socks, because those are in the video too. Can you find grammatical patterns? Like, can you figure out from the text which words are masculine and feminine? Okay, look at reviews for the products and figure out what people thought about this product and what they liked and what they disliked about it. Or write your own product review and use the ones on the website as a model. So we are not done until the time is up. And so this communicates to the kids that this isn't a race. We're trying to immerse ourselves in the target language, and we're going to take our time to do it. And so one thing you'll find with this approach is that the kids self-differentiate a little bit. Like if you're doing the vocabulary for clothing, some kids are going to be fine if they just figure out the word for shoe. But other kids are going to say like, oh, I figured out the word for sandal and high heel and pump and flat. And those, again, are not, that detailed vocabulary is not what we normally do in levels 1 and 2 and beginning levels. But for the student who's interested in it, or the student who needs more of a challenge, they're going to enjoy that process of delving deeper into the topic. Okay, what if a student is struggling with this task? They're looking at the text and they're saying, I don't get it, I can't do this. The solution is to add more structure or to limit the task. So what that looks like is, instead of looking for all of the vocabulary for any fruit and vegetable, I want you to find the word for apple, potato, banana, and celery. Like, find those words. And so give them something specific. You can also limit the search to part of the website or the source document. So you're not looking at the entire grocery store website. I just want you to look at the milk section. That's it. Okay. Working on paper can really help kids that are struggling. We do so much online, but if you've got a student who is struggling with a task, print out the website and give them 2 colors of highlighters and have them go through and highlight words that they already know and highlight words that look like English words that are cognates, and then see if we can build on those patterns. So we're not just going to say, I don't get it, I can't do it. We're going to look for something we can do. We're going to focus on what we can do and build on it. If in the worst case scenario, if you've got a student who maybe is on an IEP or really, really struggles with your class, prepare ahead of time, give them a list of the target language vocabulary and a list of English words or English images, and they just use the website to match them. That's a good way to structure it. And you can prepare that ahead of time, or if a kid is really struggling, I'll actually just write it out for them. I'll just write them a list of like, here's 8 target language words, here's 8 English words, see if you can match them up using this document. So those are some ways to differentiate. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our slides, of our slideshow, and I hope this has been thought-provoking and has given you some ideas and tools to change the way that you think about vocabulary introduction in your class. I have a lot more about this topic on my website, including like how to find these source documents, which is probably the biggest challenge. Little tips for that: anything you can buy in a store is easy to do this approach with. You just find a store that has those objects, and that's a lot of our level 1 and 2 curriculum. Anything that involves a process, usually there's tutorials online in the target language, video and audio, or video and text tutorials, and that's really helpful. And then collaborate with your colleagues in the district and see if they can help you. But check out my blog for more on this. I have a large collection of authentic vocabulary lessons on my store if you just want it to be done. And I love sharing professional development. I have a lot of topics that I can share with your school or district. So check out my social media. Please reach out if you have questions. My email is here, lisa@exploracurriculum.com, and all the links to the workshop resources are here on the slides. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope that your students enjoy the richness of learning vocabulary in the target language.